Her body gleamed like wet marble. Light slid across her as if over water. Every curve was a promise. Every movement an invitation. She didn't touch. But men forgot how to breathe. They looked, and they were already inside. Trapped. Entranced. In her. This is Medusa. And in this video, you'll learn how she drove men to the edge. Without touching a single one. She didn't come closer. She simply stood there, and that was enough. Her eyes didn't search. They chose. One glance, and everything inside you tightened, as if struck by sudden cold, but with a hint of heat. It didn't burn. It enveloped, slowly. So that your breath began to falter before you even realized it. Medusa didn't speak. She looked. And in that look, there was no plea, only a challenge. Soft, almost imperceptible, but one you couldn't turn away from. When moonlight touched her skin, it didn't rest evenly. It glided. It clung to lines, to curves, to things men aren't allowed to describe aloud, only feel. Each shimmer highlighted not details, but rhythm. A rhythm that unsettled you. In a good way. In a too good way. The fabric, almost weightless, seemed to barely touch her. It moved with her body like an extension of desire. Not a single unnecessary gesture. Not a single overt hint. But that was their whole point. Men didn't look away. Even when they understood who stood before them. Even when they knew how it would end. Because when she looked, everything else vanished. You were left alone, with her eyes. You couldn't conquer them. Only surrender. As if you were begging her not to let go. Sometimes beauty frightens not because it's alien. But because you want to touch it too much. Medusa had no ordinary features. Her face wasn't mimeized, it seeped into you. The line of her jaw, the curve of her neck, the stillness of her shoulders. All of it was made not to please, but to hold. Her skin seemed too smooth, too flawless. Like warm glass you want to touch, but fear to mark. Light didn't just rest on her. It slid. It vanished, then flared suddenly on her collarbones. On soft lines. Where your gaze lingered longer than permitted. And her hair. It obeyed neither wind nor gravity. It seemed to move on its own, coiling around her shoulders. Slipping smoothly down her back. Intertwining. As if it knew you were watching. And you were watching. Because stopping was impossible. Her body wasn't bare. But every curve spoke louder than the most brazen words. She didn't come closer, but you already felt her. You imagined her moving, walking toward you. Passing by. Ignoring you, and that's why you were ready to do anything for her to look. Beneath that beauty was an abyss. You felt it. But you still reached closer. Because Medusa wasn't the woman you wanted to be with. She was the woman you couldn't leave. She didn't touch. She didn't speak. But everything that happened to the men around her began with her. When Medusa entered a space, the air changed. It grew heavier. As if between you and her there was no air, but breath. Foreign. Deep. She moved slowly. Not because she wanted to seem graceful, but because she knew they would watch. And not into her eyes. Lower. The fabric slid across her body as if alive. Revealing, then concealing. Never fully. But always just enough to send imagination racing ahead. While reason lagged behind, trying to catch up. Men lost control not because of what they saw, but because of what they imagined. Medusa mastered this, not with force, not with spells. She knew where to linger. When to turn. How to pause. And leave in that silence something no one else could fill. She didn't tease. She allowed. And that was unbearable. Even the most restrained lost their inner balance. Because they felt that every movement she made was for one person alone. Maybe for them. Maybe not. But there you were, already standing. Frozen. Waiting. Until she turned her head, and maybe looked at you. He looked at her. But felt as if she were already inside him. Not with eyes. Not with gestures. But with something else. Older. More physical. Only then did his gaze rise, above her shoulders, above her neck. And there, movement. Hair? No. Something more. Alive. Slithering. Graceful. They didn't strike. They writhed, like breath in the night. Like a ribbon across bare skin. The snakes on her head didn't frighten. They mesmerized. Each one was like a distinct accent. A unique stroke in an image. That couldn't be captured in words. But begged to be studied with the eyes. Slowly, lingeringly, as if with fingers. Their movement didn't obey the wind. They felt what she felt. They were an extension of her mood, her desire, her thought. At times soft, at times sharp. At times caressing the air. At times freezing in complete stillness. And you understood, everything around you lived to her rhythm. Her gaze held you. Her body promised. And her hair reminded you, you were already trapped. You could still think. But you could no longer leave. Sometimes you know that beyond the edge lies darkness. But you reach for it anyway. Because light is no longer enough. You need her. Medusa never called. She didn't whisper in the dark, didn't take steps toward you. But men went to her all the same. Those who saw her. Even out of the corner of their eye. Even in a reflection. Could no longer live as they had before. They didn't seek happiness with her. They sought a moment. A single one. When she would turn. When her shadow would brush their chest. When they could say, I was near her. Her power wasn't in destruction. It was in doing it beautifully. Until your last breath, you believed. She would spare you. That you would be the one to linger in her memory. Maybe even in her thoughts. And if not, wasn't her glance worth death itself? Men lost everything. But spoke of it with a smile. Because no one promised that being with her meant surviving. The only thing she gave was the feeling that you needed nothing else in life. Before she became the gaze that stops you cold. She was just a woman. Not a myth. Not a monster. Just too beautiful to be allowed. Her skin glowed. Her hair flowed like water over marble. Her steps sounded softer than a prayer. And that was enough to make her a threat. She wasn't punished for evil. She was punished because too many let their gaze linger on her longer than they should have. Because there was something in her that others feared and desired at once. Her beauty became a weapon, not by her choice. But when it happened, she didn't turn away from the power. She took it in her hands. And then she changed. But she didn't vanish. What was once soft in her became dangerous. What seduced began to inspire awe. She no longer waited. She no longer hoped to be understood. She simply became something you couldn't escape. Now her skin shone differently. Her walk carried silence. And her gaze stopped forgiving. But still, men came. Because even in her curse, she remained the one they would want to hold close, even knowing it would be the last time. Her world was not a palace, not a cave, not a temple. It was a space where time slowed down, where you forgot the sound of your own name, where the rustle of her steps was louder than a scream. She didn't hold anyone, but no one left. The men who had been there couldn't say what they saw, because all that remained was a feeling, as if the air was saturated with her. Her breath, her presence, her skin, which you didn't touch, but felt against your own. Every stone, every turn, every gust of wind brushing your body. Everything was an extension of her. And you didn't know where the space ended. And she began. Sometimes you heard a whisper. Sometimes you felt a gaze. Sometimes you just stood in silence. And something happened inside you. Something that had never happened before. It was there. That men lost themselves. Not in battle. Not in anger. But in waiting. For her to appear again. For a moment. Maybe closer. And that was enough. To stay. Forever. She remained in history not because she killed, but because she was impossible to forget. Medusa is not just a woman with snakes. She is an image. A shadow that lingers even when you turn on the light. In her gaze, there is no evil. There is knowledge. That she doesn't ask. That she doesn't need. That she already holds within her. What others seek outside. She doesn't punish. She returns. To each, their fear. To each, their desire. To each, themselves. Without masks or explanations. A woman who can make you lose everything, yet make you feel finally alive. And so today, when you look at someone and freeze, perhaps it's her trace. In a voice, in a walk, in a lingering pause. In the way she is silent. And you hear more than in any words. Some women don't smile. They look. And you are no longer the person you were before that gaze. If you're still here, it means she touched you. Don't fear that feeling. It will stay with you. Subscribe if you want to know what else women whispered about in legends are capable of. Leave a comment, because perhaps you've already met your Medusa. And press the bell, so you don't miss the next one. Just as dangerous. Just as captivating.